On Thursday, ISIS launched a suicide attack in one of Pakistan's most revered Sufi shrines. We lost 43 men, 9 women, and 20 children. Another 250 worshippers were injured. There have also been 6 back-to-back attacks in Pakistan since Sunday, in a country that still largely denies it has an extremism problem. Let's talk about the Sufis, Islam's mystical sect. I wrote an article for my blog, The Catholic Chronicles, titled, Why Are Sufis Islam's Most Deviant Sect? In my view, to answer that, first we have that Sufis believe in a direct connection with God, and that is sometimes seen as blasphemy by extremists. This means that as Sufis, we see God and his creations as sacred. That means we see the world as something to be protected, and we see people as sacred. This also goes against the dogmatic and draconian implementation of religious codes under extremists. And third, as a Sufi, I can share that I also follow the older, more mystical belief sets, including Jewish mysticism, which is also seen as blasphemy. Here to help us understand it is Lupak editor Ali Abbas Taj. Ali is also the founder and director of Interfaith Unity for Tolerance, and he sponsored a well-received book called Faith-Based Violence and the Rise of Deobandi Militancy, which you can get on Amazon. Ali, in your view, why else is there so much hostility towards Sufis?
Well, thank you, first of all, Shireen, for talking to me about this. This is a very, very tragic event. Some estimates put it over 100 killed. The hostility towards Sufi right now is part of a greater hostility which is related to my book, or our book at IFUT, The Rise of Deobandi Militancy, or Faith-Based Violence and Deobandi Militancy in Pakistan. It is because anybody that is not Deobandi or is frowned upon by these groups like the Taliban, which are all of these groups, Sipai Sahaba, Taliban, they're all Deobandi, and they consider it a heresy to have events where people dance, people sing. Similarly, the other cultural events of Ashura, which are attended by all faiths, Sunnis, Shias, Christians, Hindus even attend these events with Muslims in Lal Shahbaz Qalandar. And Lal Shahbaz Qalandar is the biggest Sufi saint in Pakistan. So this is an enormous event, and the reasons and the animosity against Lal Shahbaz Qalandar as a symbol of love and unification, where diversity is appreciated, is what's painful for these people.
I think that brings us to a really good question, and that is why Pakistan? Why are we seeing this happening in Pakistan versus elsewhere?
Well, it's happening all over, I would say, in different forms. I mean, it's the same ideology which, I like to call the Quraishi aristocracy, which has risen its head through these two subsects of subsects, which are almost like cults, which is the Takfiri or militant Deobandis, and similarly the militant Salafis. They rebrand themselves as ISIS, they rebrand themselves as Al-Qaeda. In Africa, they have destroyed Sufi shrines as well. In Mali, they've destroyed 1,000-year-old Sufi shrine. So it is not unique to Pakistan. What is significant is that this is, together with the Gharib Nawaz of Ajmer Sharif in India, there's very few Sufi saints which achieve the stature of Lal Shahbaz Qalandar, and he is the spirit of Pakistan, in which, the Sunnis, the Shias, the Christians, the Hindus, there's a substantial Hindu population in Sindh which attends Lal Shahbaz Qalandar's Urs and Ashura. And the biggest Ashura event probably in the whole world is at Lal Shahbaz Qalandar, which has about 10 million attendees at sometimes very, very large crowds. So this is a very serious issue for Pakistan, and they got to do something about this.
Ali, on the question of why Pakistan and why specifically this shrine, is it the plurality that extremists are really focusing on attacking when we look at why is it happening at this shrine in Pakistan now?
I think that's exactly right. They are enemies of plurality and diversity. Anybody that is not like them, that is not of their cult, they are poised to eliminate or make an example of and scare people. And one of the things I think I would like to share here is that while up until very recently, the LGBT community in the West didn't have any rights, and most people that were gay were in the closet. In Sufi shrines, it was not like that for hundreds of years. For hundreds of years, Sufi shrines were sanctuaries for transgenders and the LGBT community. So the Sufis accepted gays, lesbians, especially transgenders. And while they were ostracized from the greater community, they lived quite happily under the sanctuary of the Sufi shrines. So this is how pluralistic these Sufi shrines are, and this is how important they are to have moderation in the Islamic world. And Lal Shahbaz Qalandar is the probably the biggest example of it. So we have to raise our voice and do something.
Speaking of raising our voice, do you think Pakistan is taking it seriously? I mean, I find, being Pakistani, I find such a huge disconnect between the upper class and the elite and their interpretation of the attacks versus what we see on the ground in the conversations you and I are having. So do you think Pakistan at large and Pakistani society at large is taking this seriously and understands the problem in the way that you understand it?
No, absolutely not. Not Pakistan, not the American government. Donald Trump, our president, does the same thing. He says it's radical Islam is the problem. That's in a way, and he bans all these other countries, doesn't ban Saudi Arabia, where 17 of the 19 hijackers came out of that were extremist Salafis and Deobandis. So they should define these people from their cult ideology, which is they are subsects of subsects. They are, extremist Deobandi terrorists. They're not radical Muslims. By saying radical Muslims, you're hiding them under this large umbrella of 2 billion Muslims, whereas these cults are a few million people. So define them who they are. They are cult. They are followers of this pre-Islamic time where a lot of very bad things happened, where people chopped off people's heads and ate other people's flesh. They were cannibalistic. They had all these ailments which these people are bringing back. So unless they are recognized for their ideological association and their ideological beliefs, we're not going to solve this problem.
Speaking of the umbrella of cults, is it true that ISIS has gained a stronghold in Afghanistan and Pakistan, with some members of the Taliban now linking up with ISIS?
It's very true. They're exactly, if you went on Wikipedia or any search and you took out these names like Boko Haram, ISIS, Taliban, you'll find that they only belong to two ideologies, which are these subsects of subsects, which is the Deobandi and Salafi subsects of cults. They don't belong to any other ideology. So, right. And so long as we gift wrap them in different brands, and people like both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, whether they are saying radical Islam or not saying radical Islam, it doesn't matter. Unless they are defined clearly by their ideological basis, we're just confusing the people.
Here's the last question. In my work, I find the biggest challenge is having sort of, the liberal left really understand the gravity of the problem. One is having the right understand that this is not just Islam as a totality. There's a lot more complexity here, but with the liberal left, it's having them understand that radical fundamentalism is a real problem. This is a totalitarian ideology that has zero tolerance for diversity. What would be your message to the left in terms of how does this attack in Pakistan and this attack on diversity and plurality affect us at home?
Well, I think the liberal left is obfuscating the issue by not saying radical Islam. They should be saying exactly what Donald Trump should be saying. It's the radical Salafis and radical Deobandis. Liberal left says, let's not say radical Islam. That is equally bad, if not worse, than not saying, they're not saying anything at all. What Donald Trump is saying is equally obfuscatory. He's putting everything, 2 billion Muslims under one umbrella. Even if that were true, it's tactically unwise. We don't want to make enemies of 2 billion people. So this is just these small cults, and they're clearly identifiable with their ideological basis and confused by giving names like Al-Qaeda, Taliban, whatever. I mean, these names change. There's about 30 names right now, and there's going to be more to come.
Exactly.
But they all have the same ideology.
Exactly. Thank you, Ali. This was really enlightening, and I hope to have you on again.
Thank you. Thank you, Shireen.